1954, after Senate hearings in the psychiatrist named Frederick Wortham's book, Seduction of the Innocent, the Comics Code Authority was formed. They were the de facto censor for the entire U.S. comic book industry. But in 1971, the CCA relaxed some of its long-standing rules regarding horror comics, such as a virtual ban on vampires. Marvel had already tested the waters with a quasi-vampire named Morbius in the Amazing Spider-Man series, but Marvel was planning on launching a new regular vampire title as part of its new line of horror comics. They decided to use Dracula because he was the most popular vampire character, and Bram Stoker's creation and secondary characters were now in the public domain. In this episode of Tony's Comic Spotlight, the spotlight shines on the Tomb of Dracula, issue number 1. As our story opens, we see a shot of Castle Dracula, home of the Lord of the Vampires. Hours have passed since the storm began, long hours since last the light of day cast webbings of shadow over the craggy hillside. Everywhere there is rain, an oppressive rain that seems to swallow all sound and replace those normal sounds of twilight with a kind of hollow echo. An echo of many things, of other times in the same place, of other men and other eves, of one man, a man become legend, a man whose name is whispered by these wary hill people, a man whose name is Dracula. Three American travelers, Frank Drake, his girlfriend Jeannie, and Clifton Graves, are driving down a stormy road in Transylvania in search of Dracula's castle. Frank accidentally runs the jeep into a ditch, and the three walk back to a village that they had passed before. The locals in the village are discussing Frank and his friends. Some of them are fearful that the trio will only bring sorrow and resurrect ancient evils thought long dead, while the barmaid sees only a potential fortune that can be made. The trio return to the Baron's Inn and ask for the Burgeister. The tavern is quiet, and the Burgeister welcomes them to Transylvania. They ask if there is anyone with a carriage. The Burgeister says there are many, no one that will take them to the castle, until a local named Otto agrees to take them. The barmaid laughs and makes jokes at the trio as they load the carriage and head for the castle. Otto takes them almost to the castle and tells them that he will go no further. Frank laughs at Otto's superstitious nature, but the trio leaves. As they begin walking, Clifton flirts with Jeannie, but Jeannie rebukes his advances and tells him she doesn't love him anymore, and he needs to accept it. Frank stops and takes his first look at the castle. Frank starts thinking back to how he had inherited $1 million from his father, but quickly squandered it away. He recalls how he met Clifton and Jeannie, how he and Jeannie fell in love, and how he never truly trusts Clifton. Frank tries to get loans from his friends, but to no avail. He discusses it with Clifton one night, and it is here that we learn that his family's name of Drake was actually changed from the original name, Dracula, and that he had inherited a castle in Transylvania that his dad could not sell because no one wanted to buy it. He shows Clifton a diary, and Clifton gets the idea of turning the castle into a tourist attraction. Frank reads the diary over and over again. The diary was of Dracula's grandson and told the tale of his grandfather, including his death. The three decide to go check it out. Back in the present, the three stand before the castle. They go in and start searching the ruins. Jeannie hears a sound, and as the sound gets closer, it is revealed to be bats, which terrify her, and she immediately begins wishing that she had never came. Clifton has left the group and starts exploring on his own. He falls to the floor and is surprised to find a tomb under the castle that was not mentioned in the deed. Using a match, Clifton goes down a flight of stairs and finds the crypt of Count Dracula. Lighting a candle, Clifton opens the casket and finds the skeletal remains of Dracula with a stake still in its chest. Clifton retrieves the stake from Dracula's corpse and begins plotting Frank's death so that he can take possession of the castle and get Jeannie back. But he doesn't pay attention to the fact that Dracula's body has started to reincarnate due to the fact that the stake had been removed. Clifton hears a sound behind him and turns to see that Dracula has fully regenerated. Terrified, Clifton pulls out a gun and shoots at the Count, but the bullets have no effect. Dracula punches Clifton and throws him into a pit and discards him like a piece of trash. Dracula hears voices overhead and is ecstatic to hear one of them is a woman's voice. Frank and Jeannie are searching for Clifton and find the hole Clifton fell through. Before either can react, a bat flies out and transforms into Dracula right in front of them. Dracula uses his hypnotic gaze to ensnare Jeannie, who begins walking to him, but Frank knocks her out and uses a silver compact to repel the Count, who flees the castle and flies to the nearby village. He sees the barmaid walking home and he kills her. A villager finds the barmaid's body and the villagers form a lynch mob and embark toward the castle to stop the evil from returning. Dracula returns to the castle and sees Jeannie sleeping. He goes to her, intent on making Jeannie his next victim, but he draws back after seeing a crucifix around her neck. Frank tells Dracula he put the crucifix on her and tells Dracula of his heritage linking him to Dracula. He produces a mirror and throws it at Dracula, striking him on the head. This angers Dracula, who grabs Frank by the throat and tells him he has sealed his fate, for whoever strikes Dracula strikes death. Jeannie awakens to see Dracula has defeated Frank. Turning his attention back to Jeannie, Dracula places her back under his spell and orders her to remove the crucifix, which she does, throwing it out the window. The villagers reach the castle, find the crucifix on the ground, and then bust open the doors and set the place on fire. Regaining consciousness, Frank sees Dracula leaning over Jeannie, draining her of her blood. He produces the compact, and Dracula leaves the castle. Frank is able to get Jeannie out of the castle, but the villagers leave, wanting nothing to do with the man who has awakened the demon. Frank looks at Jeannie and realizes she is dead. He was too late. But Jeannie awakens and is now a vampire. Laughing, she moves to her feet and leaves with Dracula, leaving Frank alone to mourn as the story ends. Here's a little bit of trivia I found. I hope you enjoy it about the book and some of the things that led up to the creation of the book. The first thing, this issue is the first Marvel Comics appearance of Dracula. The character Dracula is based on the literary figure featured in the 1897 novel by Bram Stoker. Stoker based his vampire on the historic Vlad Tepes, or Vlad the Impaler, a 15th century Wallachian prince. Dracula's actual first appearance was the seventh story in Suspense number 7, and is considered part of the Marvel mainstream continuity. This issue featured the first appearances of Clifton Graves, Jeannie, and Frank Drake, all of which would return in issue 2, but I believe Clifton and Jeannie would both perish in issue 2. Even though Jerry Conway is credited as the sole writer of issue number 1, the plot was actually written by Roy Thomas and editor Stan Lee, and Conway had no input into this issue until it had already been fully drawn. Conway wrote issue number 2 by himself and wrote a story that was heavily influenced by the British Hammer horror films. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Tony's Comic Spotlight. If you're liking the content so far, please leave a like and subscribe. And I'm going to post some links for some other YouTube creators in the description. You should check out their channels and give them a like as well, because they put out some awesome content. Now tonight, when this video is going to air sometime Thursday morning, but tonight I will be featured on In the Hot Seat with the Usual Suspects on Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy's YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. So you should come over there and check it out and join the live stream. We're going to have a lot of fun. It should be very interesting. This is going to be my first YouTube live stream, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Tony's Comic Spotlight, and until next time, I'll see you later.